And now, esteemed guests, please welcome to the stage our moderator, Wendy Lam, CEO of Capsol Technologies, Majun, Founding Director, Institute of Public and Environmental Affairs, and Gonzalo Muñoz, Co-founder, Ambition Loop.
Thank you to the Zayed Sustainability Prize team again for putting together another great panel. I'm very honored today to be moderating a really interesting discussion it's basically titled From Rivers to Resources and looking at inclusive pathways to climate resilience. This is looking at natural resources and how they lead to industrial supply chains and how detailed approach to understanding the data behind this can help us get past the complexity into solutions. So I'd like to introduce the esteemed panel today. We first have Ma Jun. He is part of an NGO called he's the director of the Institute of Public and Environmental Affairs in China, based in Beijing. And he believes radical transparency using public data can lead to radical transformation. Then we also have Gonzalo Muñoz, who's the co-founder of Triciclos. He's based in Chile. He's also involved in very many other activities, including an organization called Sistema B. I'll let him tell you more about it. He's also been a representative at the COP25. He was a high-level climate champion there. So we will get into the discussion already. Majun, I would like to start with you and a question for you to start. It would be good to maybe you also say a little bit about the work you are doing at the Institute. But your call for radical transparency, for radical transformation insists on public participation to bring in corporate accountability and better governance of environmental systems. How did you create the buy-in for this idea in your early years, especially amidst China's economic boom?
Thank you, Wendy. And it's so good to come back to UAE after COP28. And we started nearly 20 years ago when our country is suffering from severe air, water, and soil pollution, which expose hundreds of millions to health hazards. I believe that the issue of such a magnitude and also linked to our development model cannot be addressed without extensive public participation. And the prerequisite for that is got to be access to information. If people don't know what's going on, then they cannot really get involved. With that in mind, a group of us came together and developed a database known now as the Blue Map, and we compile the environmental quality data, the discharge, and also the corporate monitoring data, and make that public. Of course, in a country like China, where you probably know that neither transparency nor public participation is part of our DNA, and so we faced severe headwind at the beginning, and so I trust to help get people to buy in this idea of radical or disruptive level of transparency. We need to make sure that we also mind the concerns. When we push the envelope, we need to mind the concerns of the, put it in the context. So we decided that the best way is to start it with legal compliance. So people would agree that anyone who kind of breach the law should not continue their business. And so with that, we compile the corporate penalty fines and violation records, and then we want to get present first and foremost the government source the data, because that was the least controversial. It sounds beautiful, but at the beginning, not much data available.
Right.
And the first year, I remember only 2,000 records of violations we can put together. So we developed a pollution information transparency index to assess the performance of 120 cities. So in 10 years of that time, not just identify the gaps, but also the best practices so that cities can share, and then we developed a corporate performance index. So all this index helped to level the playing field. And because before, those who cut corners actually become more competitive, or they get a better chance to be promoted, those local leaders. But all this ranking, scoring, and the list of violators have changed that. So, and then the third part is about, I think the third way to tackle that, to get people to buy in, is to find solutions. Not just, we will not stop, by putting people on a so-called blacklist. We want to give them a path towards solution. So with that, we continue to tap into the vast development of IT technology and make it more smart and digital, the solutions, cost-effective solutions. So with that, increasingly, the data is being used, being brought in. And of course, we as an NGO also understand the power of us is not our resource or our power, it's our integrity. So to be able to maintain our integrity is extremely important. So try to use the data in a responsible way is very important. So with that, eventually, at the beginning, a lot of pressure coming to us. But after, the first 5 years, we started getting the central government, local government officials approaching us saying, look, at the beginning, we were so concerned that the data, environmental data, so sensitive in our country, may disrupt our society. But you put them together, it's not disrupting our society. It's actually helped to mobilize people to come together to support our efforts. And so they gained more confidence until the moment when in our new environmental basic law, a special chapter titled Transparency and Public Participation have been created. That's the first time in the history of China to have such a special chapter. Really? That shows that consensus being built.
It's really tremendous work. The Blue Map, starting with legal compliance to incentivizing competition to, mobilizing people. So it's setting a really inspirational example. Thank you, Majun. I'd like to move to Gonzalo. I mean, you were in the traditional food business for over a decade, and we're both appalled and inspired by the staggering wastage of food and other resources. You transformed this epiphany into foresighted action. How were you able to convince the private sector that environmental action can be financially viable?
Well, thank you, Wendy, and first thank you also to the Zayed Prize team. I think that the work that you're doing is incredible and cannot be better represented by Ricardo Afonso. Parabéns, querido, impresionante o trabalho que você está fazendo. You are the best example of the type of organization that we require around the world, and that was somehow what I confronted in my times as CEO of so-called traditional food companies, where many times, unfortunately, I could bring a topic to the board, being a successful company, and could be a topic that is not necessarily totally connected to the P&L. So let's say, how do we treat our employees, or how do we work with our communities, or how do we manage our waste or our environmental impact? And in those days, this is 20 years ago, most of the times, what I will receive from the board is a question saying, why do you need to do this? And most of the time, they will ask me, do you have a fine? That was the logic, right? And if I was talking about a topic that was confronting us to a legal possibility of being fined, they will just take the calculator and say, okay, what's the fine? And I was taught as a CEO, one time I remember that was my aha moment, when I was taught to be allowed to pay the fine even 10 times for that year. That was an instruction. So I got fed up to that, right? I recognized that there was a huge problem on how success was being measured at that time and still. So what I think that we're seeing as in this at least 20 years, a change and evolution on companies understanding that we cannot keep measuring success only by the financial bottom line, but rather by all the impacts that we have. I'm surprised about this logic of, even we heard today in one of the panels, like, yeah, we're recognizing that we need a healthy environment. We need healthy nature. Come on, we are nature.
Yes.
We are disconnected to our natural reality. We are a species of animal. And we require a healthy environment as we require healthy social bonds for us to thrive. And that is something that is taking too long for companies to understand, that there's no way to continue developing just with one single metric being financial metric. The result of that is the very complex and challenging world that we're living on at these days. So we started working on the logic. I'm now an entrepreneur working on, as you said, circular economy. I'm also farming. I have also participation in companies on the energy sector, consulting, wine farming. And in all of them, we're positioning the logic of the certified B corporations as a way to measure our impact, but also through a legal commitment in the bylaws that success for the company will always be a triple success. And let me refer to that very rapidly. Profits are for companies what oxygen is for humans. We need it to survive. But no one can tell you you came to the world only to breathe. There must be something else. So we have to find the purpose for every company to exist and then generate the profits.
Well, clearly very passionate about the topic, and it's very clear that financial metrics is only one part of it. And this is why taking the full look at the data is so important. So great to hear from both Chile and China on this. I know we are already running out of time. We could talk a lot more, but I'll ask both of you to end off by talking about what your priority is in your work in the coming years. So Majun.
Yeah. After more than nearly 20 years, and we have seen our water quality vastly improved. Beijing's PM 2.5 dropped from nearly 90 micrograms to 30, cut by 2/3 in 10 years of time. So water quality also improved. And so now we're facing three major global challenges, planetary crisis going on. So I believe that we can tap into the success, of using the data to tackle, to mobilize people and also motivate the market-based solutions to tackle this issue, to address, climate action and pollution control and biodiversity protection. I think we need to create synergy between all of this to make it far more efficient. And the vast development of IT technology, particularly AI, have created all these opportunities.
Thank you. Great opportunity.
Yeah, so we have just launched, like less than 1 year ago, this new NGO called Ambition Loop, and Ambition Loop is working to collaborate between the states and non-state actors, where most of the times we're based at this point in a cycle of mistrust, where one side thinks that the other one is whether corrupt or inefficient or greedy or whatever. We need to find the mechanisms for collaboration, and we do that globally through understanding the main topics that are being discussed and negotiated globally, being climate or plastic pollution or biodiversity, where you will also need the private sector and the subnational governments to contribute with their example, with the capacity of innovation to activate this ambition loop and the positive feedback loop, where ones finally know that the other one might be there and sometimes is there to support, and then we can create a loop that can contribute to not only better policies, better behaviors, but at the end also better business models and better mechanisms in the real society to progress towards sustainability.
Great. Great, and that's a great note to end on. Ambition. Thank you for both of your ambitions and for the important work that you are doing. Thank you very much. A round of applause for our panelists.